Hi Cancer, it's Jenny here with your February Tarot Horoscope. So we're just going to be pulling a single card from my Salvador Dali Tarot deck for the month of February. And we're going to see what comes up. So the first 2/3 or so of February is the end of Aquarius season. And then we'll be coming into Pisces season after that. So that's kind of what we're going to be working with here. And I'm just going to see what comes up. Hope I don't throw any cards all over the floor. For the Sagittarius video, I was like shuffling for so long before anything came out. I feel like I need to have like little stories on hand in case it takes forever. So there we go. Ask and you shall receive. Okay, Cancer. Here's what you got for the month. 8. We have 8 of Cups. Here we go. So this is what he looks like the right way up. So we have this man, and he's kind of on this journey. He's got his backpack and his hiking stick. And back here, we've got this like little village in the background. It's got these kind of flies around him here. And he came out upside down like this. So I'm just going to reach for my book here. See what the 8 of Cups has for you today. Okay, 8 of Cups. On the journey to your personal destiny. Dreams and visions that cannot be easily grasped are nevertheless an important part of our inner world. They help our consciousness to expand and our power of discernment to grow. Begin your search now. Like the cups, the moon in the upper left corner stands for spiritual needs. The card encourages you to start your journey and to keep moving. But it warns you not to become too restless, because then you might hurry past your goal, represented by the village in the background, without noticing it. The flies depicted on the card thus have a central meaning. They symbolize the autonomic nervous system and, therefore, the tension alternating with relaxation that regulates our biorhythms. Replace nervousness or sluggishness with purposeful action. Go where your heart wants you to go. It is your task to become aware of your inner flow. This is the best remedy against addiction as well as loneliness. It is said that everything flows, but sometimes the inner life has dried up or overflowed and submerged all. Think of your life as a journey. Be like the journeymen of old who used to travel in order to become masters of their craft. Where do you come from? Where are you headed? Don't force your feelings and inclinations to fit into a preconceived logic. You will find your own destiny in the balance of your own feelings and thoughts. You will discover it at the place where the experience of the flow is the strongest. This is not only a wonderful spiritual experience, it is also a very practical way of dealing with everyday life. The lazy ones are the clever ones. The person who succeeds in going with the flow exerts relatively little energy and yet achieves the most. Practical advice: feel and trust your inner flow. Be aware of your own personal rhythm and make it an integral part of daily life. Feast and fast. There is a time for everything. Okay, so this one is, it's kind of, I mean, they're all interesting. I get excited about all of them. But this one is very much this sort of feeling of, going on your own personal journey. So it doesn't have an energy of, like maybe in previous months, especially in Capricorn season, there was more like a task that you needed to work on, to build and to create, and that's kind of feels more like a stationary thing. Like you have a task that you're going to work on and there's discipline to work on it. This sort of feels like, well, it's going more with the flow. It's going on an adventure. It's going with a river, and the way rivers go, they can turn around, go backwards, get wider, get fed in by other things, get blocked up and dammed. The current can be topsy-turvy. Sometimes it's really rocky. Sometimes it's really placid. There's not a lot of consistency. And so the sort of thinking of achieving life goals in a very like disciplined, rigid, mechanical way of, yes, routines can be wonderful and lots of people work well with routines of schedules and kind of accomplishing the same thing bit by bit, day after day. But that's not necessarily the way to achieve everything, especially if you can find a state of flow where it's like the discipline practice is kind of needed when you aren't in flow, when you aren't able to ride the current of inspiration or the current of this kind of energetic, where it's like, if you have to walk on land, you just have to get up and walk every day and be disciplined to do so. And yes, there may be stages of this journeyman. Yeah, he has to get up and walk when he's not in flow. But if you can find your river and you can get on the river, then it's significantly less effort, but then the pace, the speed at which you accomplish things is going to be different depending on where you are. It might be really slow sometimes, it might be really rapid. And so even if it doesn't look consistent the way it would if you're just walking 2 feet in front of the other or manifesting in a really like hardworking kind of way, there's a lot more freedom and variation. And so there also needs to be a bit of patience to say, wow, this yesterday didn't look like today. Maybe you're in a stage where you really need to rest, or the current is way too strong, or the river is overflowed, and so you have to wait. It's not safe to dive in. And if you tell yourself, but I have to accomplish this, I have to work what I did yesterday, or I'll be ashamed of myself, or I see other people are working really hard and I got to catch up as well. If you jump in the river that day, you may hurt yourself, you may drown, you may get pushed past where you're trying to go, and then you actually miss your destination because you're too focused on getting things done. And likewise, there will be a day where you just sail past other people. And that's fine. That's very normal to have this kind of ebb and flow when we're in this kind of watery realm of cups energy. And you being a Cancer, water is kind of your element anyway. There's also this quality of talking about the autonomic nervous system, where there's tension and relaxation, where sometimes you are in motion and tension and work and contraction, and sometimes you're at rest and healing and digesting and loving, and that is good and normal. And in fact, that's healthy. If you stay in one state too long, it's not going to achieve that balance in homeostasis. But balance does not mean the flat line, the monotone, the middle effort all the time. It actually is this more normal kind of, sometimes it feels like ricocheting back and forth between extreme activity and extreme rest, if that makes sense. And in fact, when our nervous systems get out of whack, we can either be like always amped in this fight or flight stage all the time, looking for an enemy, have to be vigilant, can never rest, and we're always in this one stage of contraction, contraction, contraction. Likewise, we can get into other places of apathy or depression where we can't rise, we can't motivate ourselves, we're just resting all the time, and or we just don't feel like we have the will to keep going. So neither of those are states that you want to stay in for too long. And yet, if you find yourself in them, that doesn't mean that you've done something wrong. Sometimes there is a danger. Sometimes vigilance is important. Sometimes you are unwell and you need to rest way longer than you think. That's why if you have any sort of preconceived ideas, it's saying don't force your feelings and inclinations into a preconceived logic. Don't think I should be feeling this way right now. And if anything is off of that, then something's wrong. Where did the should come from? Who's telling you should? Is it should because last year at this time I did this, or last week I was able to? Is it should because culturally that's an expectation? Familiarly that's an expectation? Even your vision of yourself, of what you think you can be, is that what's telling you should, instead of allowing yourself to really be? And that's the whole thing, is if you have found your flow, it's connected to your heart. This is it. It's not just hop onto every river and hop on the flow. It's making sure that this is the river that is connected to your heart goals, and your journey and your vision. So this is why it's starting with the dream, starting with the vision, connecting in and searching for what it is that you want, so that you can, once you've found that flow in that river, you can get in it and then find where it's going to go and take you on your journey in that way. And then you're going to, experience this adventure where you're going to learn so many different things than you would when you're in a more stationary building sort of stage of your life. So tying this into the astrology, Aquarius season is where we're at for the beginning of February. And this is, I'm going to bring that into the autonomic nervous system conversation of tension and relaxation, because Aquarius has at its root a contracted state initially. The story of Aquarius involves Ganymede, a water bearer, being taken captive and imprisoned and abused by Jupiter, and then he has to break himself free in this kind of fit of rage and aggression, as he has to liberate himself from that oppression. And so that is a state of a very correct time to be in a tense nervous system state, in aggression, in anger, to move yourself out of bondage. That's correct. The completion of that is to then heal that trauma of being imprisoned, but let that trauma build empathy in order to find and help and search out other people who need help and liberation, and feed into the community by helping other people understand how they can become free and liberated from oppressors. But if you haven't healed that initial trauma, and you're always searching for freedom because you feel the trap closing around you, instead of searching for freedom because of what freedom allows you to do, then you end up being stuck in this kind of rebel phase where everything looks like an enemy, and you're in this hyper concentrated like fight or flight state all the time, which is really hard to get out of, because sometimes it's good to be that way. There's very few things that are always right or always wrong, always good or always bad. And so if we look in our past and we see a time where it was right to be in tension or to be angry or to be on guard, we can think, well, then it's always good to be that way. I should always be that way and I can never relax. Or we gaslight that and we say, oh, or other people gaslight it for you and say, wow, I guess I must have done something awful to do that, and I need to always calm down, always compromise, always be compassionate, and just let people do whatever they're going to do and walk over me. It is, what is the right time, the right measure, and that back and forth, that autonomic nervous system, contract, relax, be on guard, be in trust, champion and fight those who would hurt and oppress. Listen and be empathetic to those who are in harm and are wanting to hurt others. This is what is the natural state, and when you're in your flow, you can feel which one is the right one to do. So this beginning of February is probably going to be a lot of, the invitation to you is to spend that time really tuning that nervous system and looking into, from an emotional state, that feeling of, do I still have some old triggers or old times of being in a condensed, held down kind of trapped state that's feeding into my perception of the now? Do I believe that I am still trapped because I know what it's like to be trapped? And is that actually what's happening now? And if you then heal that past, you can look at the now as for what it is. And you might also be trapped now. That might be what is happening, and you then need to rally that again to get out of that state again. But at least you know that that's true to this current moment instead of just a reflection of the past. That way, you know, if you actually are safe, you'll know when you do get to rest. But you can't tell that if you haven't gone back, done that discernment, feeling into those, that sort of, just tuning into that. And it looks like for you, the dream world or working in that way, rather than just thinking about it, is going to give you like a little bit of assistance to sort of to feel into that, and to bring some healing up into that. It can be tempting to just there's a problem and I just want to hit at it, I want to focus on it. And if, mentally working through trauma or talk therapy or working it in a cerebral way really works for you, then awesome. But you don't need to strictly rely on that. All of our body systems can both help heal and keep us trapped. So we can do embodiment practices in the body to heal, but we can also be trapped and feeling agitation and nervous system in our bodies. We can trust in our emotions many times, that we can also, emotions come and go and are sometimes not the truth of what's happening. Same with mental processes. They can help us discern, but also we can get trapped in all these ways of thinking. So everything can work for and against you. One thing that may help is, it's an interesting thing. You can go either way on this. He's a journeyman. He's on his own. So you can read that as he's the master of his own journey. He knows where he's going, and he doesn't really need to check in with others. And he's actually wanting to do this solo with his own wisdom, and that might be where you're at. But Aquarius season is also about community and friendships. And when we roll over into Pisces at the end of the month, that's really about connection and empathy and kind of dissolving the borders between being a single entity and the other, and really seeing how we aren't different and separate from those in the world, other human beings and other non-human beings in the world around us. So that's very much about not being solo, not being on your own. So you may find that you do want to look for support in your community. You do want to do this healing in trust with others. So I'm not going to tell you one way or another. That's part of how you get to feel into what feels right for you. Or again, contract and relax. Do some of it on your own. some of it in community with people you trust and go back and forth, and kind of, look at it from all sides. So I think I should probably tone down because I'll just keep going. So again, the one last thing I'll say is that, speaking of Pisces season, where we're doing this work in Aquarius season that feels more like solo, trying to work on our own kind of down regulating past nervous system trauma or whichever it might be, so that we have a clear discernment of what's going on, so that we can actively be in the flow of our life better. Just a reminder that self-development and our dreams and our manifestation is only really valuable if it is of value to the whole community. And just self-development just for your own well-being really doesn't have its full potential realized. And so especially when we're rolling into Pisces season, though we can do the solo work to heal the self at the beginning of the month, that's like cooking a meal and then not eating it, or cooking a meal for 10 and only eating it for yourself. And then it goes to rot because you can't eat all of it. You have the abundance, you want to share it, and that's part of the responsibility we have to heal ourselves, and also the gift and privilege we have so that we can share it and spread that around. And that's going to be that kind of Pisces end of the month thing. So towards the end of the month, definitely see how you can be looking up and seeing how you can be aiding and building into other people, or even asking for support. It doesn't mean that you're at the stage where you are now serving others. It might be a time where you're like, I found that these wounds were deeper than I thought, or I still actually think I want to be engaged in this, in receiving as well. It's reciprocal. It's not pouring out. Or healthy Piscean energy is reciprocal giving in service, because of this whole concept of being kind of one entity or one organism, instead of I am the giver, you are the receiver, or you are the giver, I am the receiver. It's contract, relax. Sometimes I give, sometimes you give. Sometimes I receive, sometimes you receive, and that just happens. So that's the invitation towards the end of the month. Yeah, best of luck, Cancer. Looks like you've got a lot going for you this month. My love to you.